When considering a teaching position with AEON in Japan, it is important for you to think very carefully about the following information to make sure that now is the right time for you to begin teaching with us in Japan. Remember that AEON hires for teaching positions every month of the year. It is important for you to be prepared in all of the areas in order for you to hit the ground running, have a very successful initial training, and have a smooth transition off to your school. So in this video, we will cover information about the financial and emotional readiness. We'll also cover information about the health consideration, and finally the commitment that AEON is looking for in our teachers. We do recommend that you take notes while watching this information. We will cover it again during a question and answer session in our group interview portion. We will also go over it again if you are offered a personal interview. So let's talk about the financial consideration. While AEON's salary provides a very nice standard of living for our teachers in Japan, it is important to be financially prepared before coming to Japan so that you can enjoy all of what Japan has to offer while working hard for AEON. So first to consider is the startup money. Right? AEON recommends that teachers bring enough money with them to Japan for the first few months until that regular take-home pay gets on track, and we'll go over that again in just a moment. Also, please think about the travel expenses necessary to come to Japan. AEON teachers do need to provide their own flights to Japan, so please think about the cost. Costs do vary depending on departure city and time of year. And also please think about professional clothing. Remember, AEON teachers need to be professionally dressed for a 5-day work week. That means 4 suits is a good recommended minimum to come with to Japan. Many of our teachers only have maybe 1 or 2 suits at the time of the interview, so think about where you are with your professional wardrobe. Do you need to add more suits before coming to Japan? So think about the expenses you may incur there. So now let's go back to the startup money and why it's necessary. So AEON teachers get paid once a month. Payday is on the 25th of the month, and pay is done through direct deposit. Now the pay period goes from the 21st of the previous month to the 20th of that current month, with payday on the 25th. So let's think about a new teacher coming over for initial training. Say they start their contract with AEON on the 10th of the month. So from that point, they'll make initial training pay for approximately a week, and then they'll go off to their branch school. At that point, that's when the salary pay kicks in, but there's only a few days left on the pay period, so it'll be a small prorate amount of salary pay. And the teacher will also receive the flight allowance if applicable. Right? So when you take the training pay plus the small salary pay plus the possible flight allowance, it's generally not the full salary. Right? At the same time, the teacher will move into their apartment when they move off to their school, so from that point they'll need to start paying apartment rent. So there'll be a small deduction coming out of that first paycheck. So if you start with a small gross pay and you take away a small deduction, your take home will be small. Now let's move to the second month. So the teacher's been at the school for the full pay period, so they make the full salary. But here in the second month, 2 apartment rents will be deducted from the salary, so that will be a larger amount of money than usual. And AEON does that to get teachers on a normal apartment rental paying track. Think about any apartment you've ever lived in your life. You never pay rent for the month that you live there. You're always paying rent for the upcoming month. So that's what we do in the second paycheck. We take out rent for the second month, but we also take out rent for the third month to get the teacher on that normal apartment rental paying track. So a bigger than usual deduction will be coming out, which means your take-home amount will be smaller than usual. Now let's go to the third month, right? So the teacher's been at the school for the full time, makes the full salary, and here only 1 apartment rent will be coming out. So this is the first time that full take-home amount will be received, right? So from the point of arrival to this point can be up to 3 months. Right? So we do recommend that teachers be financially prepared to come to Japan so that they can live comfortably during that time. So please understand you will be getting paid in every pay period, but it does take almost about 3 months until everything gets on track. So please come with the recommended amount of money. If it's this point where you're thinking about your intended departure time and you won't have the amount that AEON recommends, that's when we do recommend postponing your intended departure date so that you can have that money and come to Japan and be able to experience all that Japan has to offer. There's many fun things to do from the beginning. You'll be meeting new teachers to work with, you'll be meeting new staff, new students, exploring Japan, and you'll want to be able to spend money. So we don't want you to be able to just go out in the first month, have a great time, and then come for the second month and you realize, oh, I don't have enough money in my bank account to live comfortably, because we want you to be able to enjoy your time in Japan. If you only stay with AEON in Japan for 1 year, that time goes very quickly. You will be working hard with AEON, you'll be doing great at your job, but it's also very important to be able to explore Japan and do all those fun things that you want to do on your free time. So please think about the startup money that's necessary for AEON.
Now let's talk about the standard of living in Japan on AEON's salary. You are living in Japan and being paid in Japanese yen. Therefore, the salary is not tied to any exchange rate, and the standard of living in Japan on AEON's salary is quite good. After paying bills and monthly expenses, teachers are generally able to do many things in Japan. For example, take Japanese lessons. I took Japanese lessons with my private tutor Keiko once a week after work on Tuesday nights. Not only did she teach me about the Japanese language, but she also taught me how to cook some traditional Japanese dishes like okonomiyaki and udon. Teachers also love to go out with their friends in their free time to experience all the activities that Japan has to offer, all the cultural events, and try all the delicious foods that Japan has as well. For me, one of my priorities in Japan, besides teaching English, was to travel. I took full advantage of the 3 one-week vacations that AEON offers, as well as making it a personal goal to travel once a month someplace new. I traveled all the way from the northern island of Hokkaido to the southern tropical islands in Okinawa, and many places in between. On top of traveling, going out with friends, and taking Japanese lessons, teachers are also able to save for the future. I sent money home every few months so that when I decided that it was time to go back to my home country, I had some savings waiting for me. However, please do consider the amount of debt that you have in your home country. Sending money to one's home country for credit card debt or student loans is an easy process. However, please think about the amount of debt and any exchange rates, as that will influence one's budgeting in Japan and then may have an impact on what they are able to do in Japan. If you have a large amount of debt, please consider delaying your intended departure date. And please talk to your recruiter about AEON's current recommendations on managing debt while living in Japan.
Let's talk about the emotional consideration. There will be challenges living and working in Japan, so it's important to make sure that you're emotionally ready to meet them. First, moving from your home country. You'll be away from your family and friends for an extended period of time, so it's important to speak openly about your plans with them. You'll want to think about missing family traditions, like getting together for holidays or birthdays. You won't be able to do this while you're in Japan. But you'll also want to think about huge, once-in-a-lifetime events, like the birth of a sibling's child or the wedding of a best friend. If any events like this are going to occur in the near future, it's best to postpone your intended departure date until after they will occur. Let that event happen, and then you'll be able to go to Japan with no strings attached. Teachers are unable to use their personal days until after 6 months into their contract.
Think about your family's health. If you're the primary caretaker for someone, you should not make the commitment to this position until someone can take over that responsibility for at least 1 year. The distance, cost of an airfare ticket, and time difference can make it very challenging to return to your country should something occur. It is impossible for a teacher to take a leave of absence if a family member becomes ill. AEON will make every effort to help our teachers should a death occur in the immediate family. Teachers will be able to return home to tend to matters, but are then expected to return to Japan in a certain amount of time to finish their contract.
Next, think about life in Japan. Living in Japan is exciting, but there will be challenges. Foreigners receive a lot of special attention, usually positive, but sometimes negative. If you like being anonymous, then Japan probably isn't the best place to live. Teachers will also be living and working in the same areas as their students. You are very visible in your community and always need to behave in an appropriate manner. There will be things that will be more challenging and require a great deal of your time and effort. Things that take no considerable effort here might be very challenging in Japan, especially if you don't speak Japanese. For example, if you can't read Japanese, you won't be able to read the labels at the grocery store. So buying food will be more challenging than it is at home. Also, you'll have to do everyday things like going to the dry cleaners, to the post office, and just do your best to communicate. There are great translating apps to help, but please keep in mind that the challenges will still be there. Those who aren't prepared often feel culture shock. But being open-minded to challenges and new experiences will help you to do great. Think about being independent in Japan. AEON is great with initial support to help our teachers get started. Your visa, airport pickup, initial training, furnished apartment, your bank account. We do a lot to help our teachers get their footing in Japan. But teachers have to be independent to live their own lives. You have to get out of the apartment and meet people. AEON can't do that for you. If you need to translate forms from Japanese and you're unable to do it on your own, you'll need to find your own help. You can't expect the Japanese branch staff to do that for you. Setting up appointments such as haircuts, doctor visits, etc. Again, you'll need to find your own help if you can't do it on your own. The staff at the schools are helpful and can answer some questions for you about bills and such, but overall you need to be independent to live your life successfully in Japan. Those who are independent and have a good sense of adventure do very well living and working in Japan with AEON.
Next, let's talk about working in Japan. AEON is a Japanese company, and our employees are expected to work inside of Japanese business culture. While AEON employs teachers from many countries, AEON is a Japanese company. Teachers must adapt to Japanese culture and AEON corporate culture. Teachers who go to Japan thinking that their country's way or their way is the best are not successful. Teachers who come with an open mind and are eager to learn how things are done in different culture and different business culture are not only successful, but grow personally and professionally and bring a lot back with them from their employment in Japan.
Next, let's talk about the health consideration. Japan is one of the strictest countries in the world in regards to illegal drugs. This also applies to medication, both prescription and over-the-counter. Just because your medication has been approved in your home country does not mean that the Japanese Drug and Health Administration approves that medication. For example, some prescription medications used to treat ADHD are considered perfectly legal in other countries and considered illegal in Japan. Along with that, when it comes to over-the-counter medications, certain ones, including Sudafed, are also considered illegal in Japan. It all comes down to the ingredients in these medications. So it is your responsibility to find out if your medication is legal in Japan. If it is legal, in what quantity? And do you need to apply for an importation form, which is called a yakan shome? If your medication is not legal in Japan, it's important to find a substitute that is legal and available in Japan and suitable for your needs.
Now let's talk about pre-existing conditions. Not all treatments for pre-existing conditions will be available or legal in Japan. It is the candidate's responsibility to find out if continuing care is available in Japan and to make sure that it won't hinder their ability to carry out their responsibilities. Pre-existing conditions can also be very costly. Having to pay 30% of cost for care, for example for doctor's visits and medicines, bi-weekly or monthly, will add up quickly. School staff is not available to help teachers with continuing care. For example, help with hospital visits or filling out forms, translating an interpretation, and etc. We strongly recommend that all teachers get a full physical, dental, and optical checkup before they head to Japan.
So next, let's talk about mental health. Of course, moving abroad and starting a new job is stressful. Those who are used to receiving counseling or therapy services have found it difficult, if not impossible, to receive the same level of care that they're used to in their home country. And the reasons for those vary. Number one, the language barrier. It is difficult to find those English-speaking counselors and therapists. Number two, the overall approach to care. There's still a stigma attached to mental health issues in Japan. Number three, the national health insurance system does have limits on the consultation times for these kinds of services. And number four, even medication that is approved and on the market in Japan often has dosage limits put on it by the government that are lower than those of other countries. Teachers who have been diagnosed with depression, anxiety disorder, or panic attacks in the past do need to contact their past or current care providers and talk about their ability to live and work in Japan. Teachers who have had a history of these issues have gone to Japan, experienced relapse, and found it difficult, if not impossible, to continue living and working in Japan. So just imagine right now, you're in your home country, you have family, friends, possibly care providers and medication, and you feel fine. Now imagine going to Japan, removing yourself from that situation and not having that kind of English support system around you. So you must honestly feel able to be successful, both personally and professionally, while living independently in Japan.
Let's now talk about dietary needs. Japan is not a vegetarian or vegan-friendly country. A lot of products contain meat or meat extracts. The Japanese idea of a vegetarian food is a food that has a lot of vegetables. However, that doesn't mean that the food doesn't contain any meat. We do have quite a few teachers who are vegetarians, and going grocery shopping and cooking for themselves is not a problem at all. However, when these teachers go out to eat with their friends, they might realize there are only 1 or 2 menu items that are available to them. So teachers who are vegetarian just need to understand that going out to eat in Japan will be more challenging than in their home country. Also, teachers who have any food allergies will also find it challenging to go out to eat in Japan, especially if you don't speak Japanese. If you have any concerns, please talk to your recruiter.
Lastly, let's talk about illness and medical problems while in Japan. If you do get sick in Japan, the school staff or the head office staff may be able to assist you the first time you need to go to the doctor. You should consider how you would feel having someone you don't know assist you with these kinds of personal matters. Doctor's visits need to be made outside of working hours. Teachers can't expect that school staff will be able to assist them every time they go to the doctor or the hospital. After that first visit, special circumstances aside, teachers are expected to be able to go to the doctor or the hospital on their own.
Finally, I'd like to talk about the commitment consideration. Unforeseen circumstances aside, applicants need to be able to commit to at least 1 year at this position. First, timing. Please think about your personal, educational, and professional goals. For example, if you have plans to attend graduate school this year, please think about the AEON contract period as well as when your school would begin. If the two conflict, now is not a good time to work for AEON. Please understand that the commitment for this position begins before the contract dates. Once a teacher accepts a position, the commitment for AEON begins through the time of departure until the ending dates of the contract. Second, professional expectations. You are being considered for a full-time professional teaching position with a Japanese company in Japan. Please be sure that this is the type of position you're interested in. It is a job. This is not an exchange program where you travel a lot and teach a little. It is the opposite. You will be teaching a lot and, of course, traveling in your free time. AEON makes a very strong commitment to our teachers to help them improve and succeed in Japan. In exchange, teachers are expected to make every effort to support their students and their schools. Third, students' expectations. Students choose AEON because of our reputation and because we offer regular teachers. When a student signs up for lessons at AEON, the expectation is that their teacher will be there for at least 1 year. Students become attached to their teachers and vice versa. The success of our students comes not only from their own commitment, but from the commitment of their teachers over an extended period of time.